Hi and welcome to another episode of Peacemaker TV. In this video we're going to be looking at Oxygen for WordPress. Now if you've ever decided you want to build a WordPress website but you don't want to rely upon a theme, then Oxygen may well be the right option for you. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to break it into two pieces. We're going to look at the basics of creating a page using the templates that ship with Oxygen, and then we're going to look at how you can actually customize things in a little bit more detail in the second part. So let's get stuck in and see exactly what Oxygen offers us. So before we start looking at Oxygen in detail, just to be clear and say this is a sponsored video by Oxygen themselves. They've asked me to take a good look at this product and give my honest feedback to you, our viewers, and let you know if I think it's a good product or a bad product and what I kind of do and don't like about it. So with that being said, let's get stuck in and take a look at some of the basic building blocks that you're given when using Oxygen. So first up, one of the things that kind of feels a little weird when you use this product is the fact that you're not really working with any kind of theme. Oxygen itself is just a sort of visual way of building up your website page by page. You can also use some of the advanced sort of widgets and things so you can pull in the content from your blog posts and pages and so on, but you can still build up the design yourself, so you're kind of not tied to working within the confines of a theme. You can control pretty much every aspect of your site design. You can save things out then as template building blocks, so your header and your footer, for example, can be saved out, and then you can call those up from a single page and just add that into every page you want to very quickly and easily. So what we're going to do to start off with is we're going to create a new page and take a look at how we can load in Oxygen and how we can start working with it. So let's just go and create a new page and we'll just call this demo. Once I've done that, I'm going to click on publish. And you can see once I've done that, that brings up the options to bring up and you start using Oxygen. So you can see we can edit in the visual editor, or we can call up a template that we may have saved previously as part of our Oxygen templates. You can also go through and use page shortcodes, or you can come down and you can just start working inside the normal page editor that ships with WordPress. So for this, we're going to come in and we're just going to click to edit in visual editor, and that will then open up Oxygen where we can start taking a look at the interface and start building our first page elements. Now it's a pretty straightforward interface. You're going to see that it's broken down into a pretty blank starting off point where we can go in and we can add a new element in there. We can go through and we can see the sort of stack on the right hand side. We can jump back into WordPress. We can sort of take a look at the settings that are available and we can save the page. So what we're going to do is we're going to come to add first of all, click on there, and you can see in a very similar fashion to what we have with most other sort of visual editors is the option to go through and pull in different building block elements. So you can see we've got things like sections, columns, divs, headings and so on, so we can really get in and fine tune exactly what we want. We can build it up from a really basic point of view, or we can use WordPress widgets. So we jump into the WordPress tab. You can see we've got shortcodes and widgets. We can click and go and take a look at the different options inside there. So we can use sort of native widgets and components from WordPress, and we can build our pages up using those, so we can create a completely bespoke design but still leverage the power of those different elements that WordPress has. Once we create some reusable elements, things like headers and footers and stuff along those lines, they'll be listed inside this section so we can quickly and easily add those to our page design. If we jump over to components, you can see we can go in there and we can sort of pull up different component elements that all pages would use, things like headers and footers, heroes, content and so on. And finally, we've got design sets. And when you have Oxygen, you have design sets as part of that. So these are basically a set of design elements that you can call upon. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump back to components and see how we can very quickly and easily build up a page just by using these sort of basic components. So let's come down to the header section, and you can see once we click on that and expand that out, there's a range of different predefined headers. Now even though they're predefined, we can still add them in there and customize every aspect right the way down to the code, the JavaScript and the CSS that applies to any element on there. So if you're the kind of person that you like to have the power of WordPress, but you like to have the ability to go in and fine tune and tweak and add your own functionality in there, really get right the way down to sort of the component level, then you can easily do that by using this particular plugin Oxygen. So it's really cool. Depending upon the level that you're working at, you really have a huge amount of flexibility in there when you're working with creating your web pages and your websites. So let's start building our page by adding in the header that we want to work with. You can see we've got a range of different options, and I'm going to go for this nice simple one, so I can just simply click on the plus. That will now add that into the stack, and we've now got our header in there ready to start working with. We can now go in and fine tune anything in there. Now, if we come over to the top right hand side, you can see we've got the little hamburger menu, and if we click on that, that will now show us the tree. In other words, each of the different building block elements. In this example, you can see we've got the body and we've got the div block number 2, which is the heading area. If we expand that out, that'll show us the different component sections in there, and we can step down through and we can fine tune anything inside that. So you can see we can very quickly and easily see exactly what we want, target it by clicking on it, and once we do that, we then get context information placed across the top, which we can then go through and start to fine-tune our design. Now we'll come back to that in a moment. Let's go through and build up some of the other elements that we want to put on the page, and then we'll take a look at how this DOM tree is used and how we can fine-tune and tweak and adjust this to customize it to what we want. So let's just come back over to these components, click back on component. You can see that takes us back up to the sort of root level. So next thing we're going to do, let's go and put a hero in there. So let's click on that, and again you can see we've got a whole range of great looking predefined pre-built options. Now the nice thing with this is they're all professionally designed, and even though we can change the elements inside there, they're still designed in a very flexible way that's going to look good on both a desktop, a tablet, and your mobile device. So you've got that full sort of control over how everything looks. You can even get down and customize and control exactly where the breakpoints are, and so much more with this Oxygen plugin. So for this, let's grab this nice hero centered with a large laptop one. We'll click on the plus, that'll add that in there. Once we do that, you'll see that now puts everything preloaded in there for us. And if we take a look on the right hand side, you can see now our hero section is in there. So all that information is in there. Now, unfortunately, this has put it into the wrong location. You can see we had a particular area selected and it's gone and dropped it in there. So how can we undo that and change it? Well, let's take a look at that next. So this is where the beauty of the DOM tree on the right hand side really comes in. If you're used to using things in Photoshop like layers and things along those lines, then you're going to find you get very used to the whole drag and drop layer sort of layout. And this is working pretty much in exactly the same way. This is just working from the different building blocks we've got inside our page. So where we've got the hero, centered hero in the wrong location, I can simply grab that and drag that to where I want it, let go, and you can see now that's placed in the right location inside the hierarchy of the page. Everything has moved around, all compensated for that alteration. So quick and easy. Like I say, we can then come in if we want to, we can expand that out, and you can see each of the different elements inside that particular block and now all fully selectable. It tells us exactly what the tags are. We can click, and like I say, the image at the top then, or the information at the top, changes in context based upon what we've got selected, and then we can go in and fine tune and tweak. Anyway, let's just jump back to those components and let's go and put something else in there. Let's just say, let's have a call to action. And I kind of like the look of this blue one, so we'll go for 3 boxes. We'll click, add that in there. Once that's loaded up, if that's in the wrong place, again, we can easily drag and drop that around, but we've got that right this time, nice and neat and tidy. So we'll come back in, add a couple more in there. So let's just say we want to put some WordPress content in. You can see we've got options for sort of articles and pages and a whole range of different things inside there, comments and so on. And we're going to come back to those and look at those in a lot more detail later on. So let's just jump back out of that for now. Let's come back up and let's just say we're going to have, let's go for the footer. Let's just keep it a nice simple page. And we'll go for this slightly more complex looking footer. And we'll click to add that in there. So we'll add that now. And we'll let that load in. Again, we've got that in the wrong location, so we can just leverage the power of the stack on the right hand side, and we can just simply drag that to exactly where we want it to be. So drag that, drop it, and there we go. We've now pretty much got a great looking page already built up just by using those simple building block elements. Now we can go in and start fine tuning and tweaking this design to get it exactly in line to what we want, whether that's our company branding, our color scheme, whatever you want to do, we can go in and change all of that information right now. Okay, so now we've got the basic page put together, we now need to go in and fine tune that to make sure it's exactly how we want it to be, and not just use the placeholder information that's already predefined and laid out in these templates. So let's do that right now. Let's take a look at what we can do. We can easily come in and you can see once we take our mouse over, that will automatically highlight each of the different elements, and we can easily click. That'll bring up the options on the right hand side. It'll sort of show us exactly in the stack what we've selected, and then once we've got that selected, we can then come up to the top and we can make changes and alterations up there. We can bin things off. We want to remove that component. We can add duplicate components if we want to. We can take a look at what this is going to look like and style it based upon the different device it's going to be used upon. So if we've got a desktop or you want a tablet, you've got all those options available, and you can easily go in and adjust that. You can even come in and choose the different states that are applicable to certain different elements in there. So you've got the original, the hover, the before and after, and so on. We can even go in and add our own states if we want to. What this also does is it shows us the actual ID selector for this particular item. So you can see we could target the CSS if we wanted to, using it up there. We can change the color directly from here. We can change the font if we want to from this, the size, the weight, and so on. We can link the information in there. We can click on more, and you can see we've got a whole range of other options now available to us. So we can easily come in and really fine-tune exactly what's going on inside this particular block of information. So let's go and change some basic typography in there. Let's just say we want to change this to a different font, so we're going to go for Nanito. You can see once we do that, it immediately shows the changes on there. We can easily come in and change the size of that if we want to sort of make it stand out a little bit more. We can change the weight. Do the exact same thing with the text, the height, the heading if we want to. So we can come in, we can select that, we can change the size on there. Easily come in and change that. Again, we'll change this, we'll choose Nanito again, but this time we're going to go for a nice, thick, bold kind of font. Again, we can easily change this. Let's just set that to 56. If we don't like the look of that, we can easily just adjust it to get it exactly as we want it to be. We can change the color, the line height, the letter spacing, all the text decoration and so on. We can capitalize, uppercase, lowercase. You can see it's very, very quick, very intuitive to work with. All very, very simple and straightforward. If we want to apply borders, we can simply come over to that information on there. We can choose we want to apply borders to everything, or we can say let's just put on the bottom, and we'll click on there and we'll say we want a solid border. We'll set that to be a light gray, and actually let's go for dashed, and we'll go for 1 pixel. As soon as we've done that, you can see that now updates in real time. We can see exactly what's going on there. So we can click off it and you can see there's our underlined sort of border. All very quick and easy. Now then, let's just say you want to go one step further. You really are the kind of person that you like to get in and really get stuck in and fine tune and tweak everything on a really granular level. Well, you can do that. You can see that when we've got any element selected and we come to the CSS and JavaScript tab, we can click on there and we can switch between the two different tabs on there. So you can see you've got CSS and JavaScript. You can see under the CSS it's pulled in the ID selector for that particular element. So we can, if we want to, now go in and start fine tuning that. So let's just look at a simple example. So let's just change the color of the text and we'll just set that to black. Now we're just going to put the important tag on there just to ensure that it knows to override any of the predefined styles that are part of Oxygen. So you can see once we do that, that now updates the font color immediately for us, and that's all being done inside Oxygen itself. Again, we can come into the JavaScript, and if we want to, we can start assigning JavaScript to that, and we can go in and customize anything we want to for this particular element throughout the entire site, the page, so on. So it's really, really flexible to work with. We've got, like I say, from the simple kind of person that only wants to deal with the basics of dragging and dropping and tweaking and adding their content in, to the developer that might want to get in, have the power and flexibility of working with WordPress, but really want to get in and get their hands dirty by going in and coding things and making things really sort of styled and laid out the way they want. This kind of covers both aspects and everything in between. So we've seen the basics of how we can edit the text. Let's take a look at things like just changing images that are in this design. So all we need to do, come over and click on the image we want to change. Take a look at the top bar where pretty much all our context-based information is going to be associated. So we can click on Browse. You can see the URL at the moment is pointed to this image. Click on Browse, choose an image from our document library and just click on Select Image, and you can see that adds that in there. We can now come into More if we want to, and we can start adjusting and tweaking this to get it exactly as we want. So obviously the image is a different size. We need to go in and make some adjustments to that now. So we can come out to the position and size. We can go in, we've got margins and padding, position, size, and so on. We can adjust that and do exactly what we want with this. So let's just specify we want this to be inline block, for example, and we're going to come down to the margins and padding. We'll set those now to 0 because we don't want this to sort of scoot down the page, as it were, based upon the other image. And you can see that now immediately picks up everything is positioned as we want it to be. All very simple and straightforward. Quick and easy to make those changes. So you can see we can come in and make changes to any of this. If I want to come in and change some text, I can double click in there and I get my inline text editor, so I can easily go in and format my text if I want to. I can say, well, I want this to be centered and I want it to be bold. So let's just select that, specify bold, and there we go. Very quick and easy. Click done. So you can see it's very easy to use these building block templates and go in and adjust everything yourself. Now again, one of the things that's beautiful about this is the fact that because we're not using a theme, it's not overly bloated like you get a lot of themes, which means that you get a very slow front end when you load the site up. This is very, very quick. You're not dealing with those theme files and all that tons and tons of junk that go with it. So a great way of being able to work with creating page layouts and content. Now, one of the other things you can do with this is once you kind of set something up, a style that you like or a building block element that you like and want to use again, you can then save that out. So let's take a look at that. So let's just collapse all these a second. And we're just going to come up and we're going to make sure we've got the right area selected, which in this example is going to be the header. So we'll click on div block. You can see that now selects all the header content and everything inside it. If we come to the little hamburger menu on there and click, you can see we've got a couple of options in there. We can make reusable, which is what we are going to use to make this an element we can call back up at any time we want to. You can duplicate it, you can wrap it with inside a div, and you can rename it. So let's just rename that to start off with, and we'll call that header. So we've renamed that, and now what we're going to do is we're going to make some changes to it, and then we're going to come back and we're going to save that out and make it a reusable template. So at the moment, I don't really want to use resume as an example on this. So I'm going to click in there and we're going to change that, and we're going to say something along the lines of portfolio. So we've done that. We've made our changes to it. We've gone through and styled everything the way we want it to be. So now what I can do is I can come up to this, click the little hamburger menu, and I can say make reusable. Once I do that, you'll see it says componentize name. So you say reusable component. We don't want that to be. We're going to call this header demo. And we'll click OK. That will now save that. That's to become a reusable element. So now we can make that usable on any page. So let's just save this out. Let's just jump back into WordPress. And that'll take us back. We'll just update this page now so we make sure we save everything. And what we're going to do now is we're going to create another new page. So we say add new, and we're going to call this one demo 2. And we'll publish that. We'll edit with the visual editor so we can bring up Oxygen so we can start working with this. And once we've loaded that in, we're going to go through then to the reusable elements, and we're going to quickly and easily add in our header. So we click on add. This time we're going to choose reusable, and you can see there's our header demo. You can see now we have a couple of options on how we want to work with this particular reusable component. We've got single and we've got editable. If we use single, that will put it in there and we can't make changes to that. If we use editable, we can. So we're going to choose single so we don't end up making changes to this by accident. And you can see that now becomes something that we can't edit like we could before. So this just becomes one entire building block. If we open up our stack on the right hand side, you can see we've got reusable post, and it's not expandable like the other one was. So we can't see all the component elements inside there. If we use editable, for example, then you'll see that this gives us all that control and functionality where each of those different elements are selectable and editable. So you've got the option of working one of both ways. So that's how easy it is to use reusable elements. So that's the basics of dealing with Oxygen. In the next part of this video, I'm going to go in a little bit more in detail and show you how you can use more of the elements that are building blocks of WordPress itself, as opposed to what we've done so far, which is basically just take different building blocks and create our own dedicated custom page with no real WordPress functionality built into it. So let's take a look at that in the second section. So now that we've taken a look at how we can use some of the basic building blocks inside Oxygen, let's now move on and take a look at how we can use some of the WordPress key elements, things like the blog pages and stuff like that, and how that integrates into the Oxygen system. Now this works slightly differently again. What we need to do is we need to come down to Oxygen and we need to go into the templates section. Once we go in there, we can now start creating our template. Now, as you can see, the reusable template for our header is already in here. So we've already got that set up. And you can see that this is an easy way to come back in and make changes to those and take a look at all the different templates you created for the project or the website you're currently working on. What we're going to do is work with this in a different way. We're going to add it from this template section. So we're going to click on Add New. That will take us through and we can do a couple of simple things. First thing, and most importantly, let's name this. So we're going to call this News. So this can be like our blog section. From there, we can now go through and choose a couple of different template options. We've got Archive, Single, Reusable, and so on. For this example, we're going to choose Archive, and this is going to allow us to sort of tap into the loop inside WordPress itself, so we can now start pulling in that information. We can then go through and we can sub-filter out anything that we want or don't want to be included in this particular section and template. For this example, we're going to come in, we're going to choose all of these different options because I want to put in all our posts. I'm also going to put in the search results, date archive, and the blog posts. So everything is going to be pulled into this now, and that's all we need to do at this point. We can hit publish on there. That will now just go back into that, and we can start editing this inside the visual editor. Before we do that, I want to jump back and we need to do a couple of things inside WordPress itself to be able to use this. Now, if you're familiar with working with WordPress and the blog side of things, you're going to know that you need to go in and set up a few parameters and create a page that's going to be the sort of the placeholder for your blog. And that's exactly what we're going to do now. So we're going to come over to the pages, and we're going to say we're going to add a new one in. And from there, we're going to call this news. And we're just going to hit publish. That's all we need to do with this. We're not going to create anything on there, no content. We're just going to leave this as the placeholder. Next up, we need to come down to the settings section, and we're going to come to the reading option. And in there, we can now choose what the front page displays, and also, if we change it to a static page, what page actually displays our posts. So we'll set this to a static page. I'm not going to worry about the front page. You can set that to wherever you want it to. You can see all the options are in there. What we're going to do is we're going to choose the posts page, and we're going to specify this is going to be the newly created news page. So like I say, this is pretty, if you're dealing with WordPress on a regular basis, you're going to be pretty accustomed to working with this, and this is no different. We just now get to go in and physically customize this listing page and also the blog page that you'll view the individual posts on, so you get a lot of flexibility that way. So we're going to come back to Oxygen and go back to the templates. And we're going to go back into our news section, so we can go back in now and we can start creating the layout we want. Now in this video, I'm going to keep this really, really simple. I just want to show you how this works. We're not getting into the nitty-gritty of how we can customize and tweak every aspect of it. That's kind of way beyond what this video can do. But we're going to click on Edit News in Visual Editor. Once we do that, we're going to come back into a normal page using the Oxygen layout, and we can now start using some different building blocks. So let's just open up the stack on the right hand side, and let's come down to Add, and we're going to come down to Components. So we're going to click in there, and you can see if we look down, we've got WordPress content. So let's click on that, and if we scroll through all this, you'll see that all the different building block elements for dealing with a typical blog listing, or in our example a news listing, are all available in here. So you can see things like the blog archive, pagination, the title, the author widget, blog, full post, and so on. There's a whole range of different options. So now, instead of just having the same layout for every single blog page like you would with a theme, we can really get in and customize this from a really simple point of view where we can just choose what goes where, right the way down to customizing this down to the nth degree. So let's start off by coming in and choosing to put the archive in there. So we're going to click and put that into the page. Once that's loaded enough, you can see that'll automatically start bringing in the information that we've got in our posts. So we've got the date that it's posted, the author, the title, what section is posted in. We've also got the featured image and the actual text itself. So you can see if we look on the right hand side, we've got all the different hierarchy set up in there as well. So you can see the article section, we can click on there and we can start to tweak that if we want to. We can make this reusable if we want to. All the same options we looked at in the first part of this video are already in here. So when we start making changes to this, we can then save this out as a reusable element, so we don't have to come back in and make loads and loads of changes over and over again if we create additional pages that use the same kind of structure. We've also got the ability to go through and preview different pages or different post layouts. So you can see at the moment we're viewing news, but any of the sections in there we can come in and we can go through and find out exactly what they're going to look like, so we could tweak those different pages, those different previewing options based upon what we choose in here. So if we wanted to, we could look at all the ones that are by the particular author, we can look at the ones that are the search results page, and so on. As before, we've also got the ability to come in and tweak and edit all the different aspects of this. So let's just say, for example, we want to make a change to the blog post title. We can click on there. You can see this now comes up and shows us a selector, which we've got a couple of options. And again, we've got the hierarchy in there. So we can say, we can make sure that H1 page title is exactly what we want. We can come back, close this down, and we can do what we want to this now. So we could say we want to go into the typography, and you can see I've already set this to be Nonito. But we could say, well, we want this to be 46, for example. We may want to change the alignment, so we want this left aligned as opposed to being centered. And you can see we can come to the next section. We can do exactly the same in there, the previous section. All these things are very quick and easy in a visual fashion. And if we want to change anything to do with those, we can quickly and easily do that. We might say we want to have this capitalized, or we want to have it all uppercase. Well, there we go. We can easily do that. That'll now apply that to every single post. If we scroll down and take a look at the next one, you can see that's picked up the same styling, the same position, and everything else to go with it. So let's just save that a second. And let's take a look at what the page looks like in our browser, and we can see how we can very easily start to adjust and tweak this. So this is what we have at the moment. You can see the text is aligned to the left-hand side. We've got a full-size image on there, and we've got the text underneath it. Well, let's take a look for an example to see how easy it is to start to customize this page. Let's make that image smaller. Let's make it float to the left-hand side and let the text go around it. So let's just jump back into the Oxygen editor and start making some changes. So let's click on the image to make sure we've got that selected, and you can see it brings up the selector option. So you can see we've got image is the selected item. And all we need to do now is come up to the top and choose more, and we can start editing that. So you can see I'm already in the position and size. We've got margins, position, and size we can go in and start changing the settings for. So let's start off with the position. And let's just set the visibility and the float and everything on this. We want the float to be left. So this will now float over to the left-hand side. We're going to come to the size, and we're going to set a maximum size on this. So we'll say maximum size of 500 pixels. And we'll cut the margins and padding. And what we're going to do is we're just going to put a little bit of margin on top of 10 pixels, 50 to the right, so we've got a nice bit of space on there, and we'll put 50 at the bottom as well. So let's just say that's all we need to do. Let's just hit save on there. Now let's just jump back over to the page, refresh that, and you can see we've immediately changed the way that everything looks on there. The text is now on the right hand side, the images float to the left hand side, and we've just literally changed a couple of simple parameters on there. So you can see that just scratching the surface of how easy it is to start making changes to the way that your page looks is great, really, really quick and really, really easy. So before I wrap this video up, there's one more thing I want to show you that I think is vitally important, that you kind of get your head around to see how powerful this is when you use Oxygen as the basis of your WordPress website. Now we've seen how you can do things like you can use all the building blocks, we've seen how you can use the power of some of the WordPress loop and things along those lines, but what makes it even more useful is the fact that you can tie this in to using things like Elementor or Visual Composer or any of those page builders. So I'm going to show you how you can use the free Elementor to take this from being something that's really cool to something that's just extra little bit special. So I've already created a page for our Elementor page. So I'm going to come into the pages section, and in there I've got Elementor. So I'm going to open that up. As you can see, this page, it looks exactly the same as it normally does. The only difference to anything else I was showing you in the video is now that I have the Edit with Elementor option instead of the normal WordPress editor. We'll look at that in a moment. We'll come back to that in a second. What we need to do first of all is set everything up to use Elementor. So what we need to do is come into Edit in Visual Editor. That'll take us back into Oxygen. Once we've loaded Oxygen up, we can now go in and set up what we need. So for this, we're going to keep it, again, pretty straightforward. I'm going to add a header and a footer in there from the already predefined components. So we'll just add that in. So we'll come to header, and we'll choose this one. And we'll say add the component to the page, let that load in. Once we've done that, we'll jump over and we'll put a footer in there. So again, same kind of thing. We'll jump back in, go to footers, and we'll use this one as an example. So we'll put that in there, and once we've done that, we now need to go in and start using some of the fundamentals. So just jump over to the Fundamentals tab, and we're going to put in a HTML code block. So I'm going to click, add that in there, reposition that by using the stack on the right-hand side, position that where we want it, which is in between the two elements. You can see it already puts a little bit of text in there, which is just some simple PHP code that's been tagged in. We need to go and just put a little simple bit of code in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand this out, and we can say we're going to come to Code Editor. And as you can see, there's our little bit of information that's been put in, which is just today's date. We can delete that out of there. And what I'm going to do is I've got a little bit of code that I've set up, which will call up what we need. So let's just take this out. And this is what we need to put in there, which is just simple. I'll leave that on screen for a moment so you can take a look at that, pause the video, make a copy of it, whatever you kind of want. And what this does is it just simply allows us to invoke the content that's going to be created inside the WordPress editor, or in this instance, the Elementor editor. So with that code block in place and that little piece of code in there, you can see we now have this empty white area, which is the placeholder for where the content that we create inside Elementor, or whatever sort of visual editor you decide to use, will be placed. So we've done that. All I'm going to do now is click on Save and just jump back into WordPress. And that'll take us back to the normal page. So now all I'm going to do is just come down and say Edit with Elementor. And we'll just create a really simple page layout, something really straightforward. So let's just go in and we'll say we want to put an image in there at the top. So let's just say add a new section, full width, insert image. We'll put an image in there in a second, and we're just going to come into this and we'll add a new section, and we'll put 3-column section in there. So we've got some basic building block elements. Let's come into this, let's choose our image, and we'll have this picture of the road, insert that. So we can set any parameters we want on this. We'll say we want that to be full size. So I'm not too worried about what's going on in this. I just want to show you how easy it is to start building things. And in this, we'll just put an image in there, and we'll just come back in and we'll put some text underneath that. Text editor, and we'll just drop that in there. We'll leave that text as is, and we'll just quickly put an image in here. Again, we'll use the road one for this example, and we'll just simply duplicate this a couple of times. So we've got a couple of identical copies, and we'll just reposition those in the relevant columns. Same with the text, we'll just duplicate that twice, reposition it, and the same again. One more we're changing the picture, so we'll just say that's our layout all done for us, and we'll just hit save like we would when we're using Elementor any other time. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over to the home page, the demo page that we've got set up, and I'll show you exactly what this looks like on the page. So we're on to our test layout now, and you can see exactly what we've done, all built inside the Oxygen template that we created, or the Oxygen layout we created. But all the content inside there is now powered via Elementor itself. So you can see that if we start to shrink this down, we want to work on mobile devices. Everything scales nicely, all looks really good. You can see that the predefined Oxygen layouts all work great. Everything looks fantastic on there. And I've got to be honest, for someone that works with building websites on a daily basis and pretty much inside WordPress exclusively, the ability that Oxygen gives you to be able to create great looking basic layouts and then tie that into the power that you have with Visual Composer and Elementor and those page builders of that kind of style really does make this something a little bit special. So if you want to have a platform for developing WordPress websites that gives you a huge amount of flexibility, integrates great with things like Elementor and Visual Composer, I would say Oxygen is for you. But don't just take my word for this. Have a look on the YouTube channel for Oxygen and check out some of the other videos that are on there that will show you all the different options that are available to you, way beyond what I've been able to cover in this video. I've literally scratched the surface of the power of Oxygen. Well, if you've enjoyed the video and you'd like to look into Oxygen more, the link and all the details in the description below. So go over to the website, check it out. If you think it's for you, then go and purchase it. If you have any comments, questions, or feedback on this video, please pop those in the comments section below. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up and smash that subscribe button to be kept up to date with all the content we add every single week. Until next time, take care.